Welcome into another video. We are back with our rookie dynasty rankings for 2026. Now making our way into the wide receivers. If you're interested about the running backs, it is on our YouTube channel now. My YouTube channel. Go check it out. My boy Ryan Sharma and Lucas Hoig joining us. We really didn't, have too much fun with the running backs because it was kind of a whack group, but there's a lot of juice, I would say, within this wide receiver group. And once again, some skewed rankings here where we're going to have some good conversations along the way. We've got three unique players. Cash Sharma, per usual, he always has a trick or two up his sleeve. Has two unique players. Lucas has one himself. And let's go ahead and dive right into it. He was in your top 10 original wide receivers, Ryan, and it's Malachi Fields at your 9 spot. Does not make the cut on me or Lucas's list. What do you like about the head shake already? You got him at the 9, okay? let's not go high, let's not get too high on ourselves right now. But what do you like about Malachi Fields that stands out against maybe a few other guys that we prefer?
Yeah, so I had him top 10 pre-draft, like you said. I feel like I kind of nailed that, especially relative to where he got drafted. Got really good draft capital by the New York Giants. Went ahead of some names that we thought he might not go ahead of, like Brazzell, Chris Bell, guys like that. So him getting that draft capital is very nice. And then I think the landing spot is perfect. So pre-draft, I compared him to T. Higgins. I think he's got a lot of the same traits, just in terms of, look, he's going to be a downfield threat, big body, go up and get it kind of guy. And I thought he was a perfect complementary wide receiver 2 type of player. And look, if you want, like, Malik Neighbors to me is kind of like Ja'Marr Chase in a lot of ways. So it's a kind of an interesting comparison where it's like, if I were to compare Malik Neighbors to a player, it would be Ja'Marr Chase. If I were to compare Malachi Fields to a player, it'd be T. Higgins. So I think that they're kind of like the NFC's version now, where you've got the complementary wide receiver 2 who you can get the ball down the field to, and then Malik Neighbors is obviously your stud wide receiver 1. So I just really like the fit here. The thing that really has to come to fruition is Jackson Dart's ascension into becoming a star. I don't think he showed enough last year to say that he's for sure going to be a really good quarterback. So that could be something that holds him back. But in general, I just like him being a wide receiver 2 in this offense. Not a lot of competition for him. And I think he's going to slot into that role pretty immediately.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, another thing is Matt Nagy's play calling is something that we maybe need to be a little bit concerned about. But
Zach Taylor, is he that great?
Also very true. I like Fields. I like the pairing. This is somebody that me and you talked about. I wasn't huge on Fields going into the draft process. I had around a 4th round grade on him, and we're talking pairings with the New York Giants. I love the fit there. He kind of complements everything that Malik Neighbors does well. So I think you nailed that on the head with him being, now the front runner to be the wide receiver 2 with Wan'Dale Robinson being gone. I like the fit. Lucas, any comments on Malachi Fields?
Yeah, I think the opportunity is what stands out the most there, and I don't necessarily see the talent and draft capital like being a clear cut. This guy absolutely will be the wide receiver 2, but he's got a clear path, so I like the pick from Ryan.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got one of your guys now, Lucas. That's Chris Brazzell II, and this was actually somebody who both me and Ryan had in our top 10 wide receivers. This was not Dynasty. Remember, when we were making these, Ryan might have had a little bit more Dynasty in his rankings. I was just overall talking my top 10 wide receivers, talent-wise, of the draft class. Brazzell was in my top 10, but he does not make the cut now post-draft for my top 10 Dynasty rookie wide receivers. But what do you like about Chris Brazzell II's game, Lucas, that made him fit into your top 10?
Yeah, I think the team that he's on, Coker and Ted both have Ted Iroa. Sorry, I don't want to offend him and his mother by giving him the nickname there, but he's got his place on the Panthers and he's the clear number 1 there. But I think Brazzell does a lot that's different from what he does, and so I think he could be a really complimentary piece there. And I think a lot of people, you guys both mentioned it, but had him higher up on the rankings pre-draft. I wouldn't have been surprised to see him go like where Stribbling went, early 2nd or even late 1st, and yeah, he ended up sliding. So I think that's really where I can see why I'm unique in this sense here, but really like the talent. I think the opportunities there, and Tennessee wide receivers haven't historically been great over the last few years, but I think he is different than guys like Hyatt. That I'm not going to hold that against him.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was making those same arguments you did there, Lucas, in our pre-draft ranking. I felt like I was kind of going out on a limb with Chris Brazzell, maybe against what Will was thinking, where he was maybe a little bit more helmet scouting with the Tennessee guy. And I was like, no, he's a little bit different. He's got more talent. I compared him to George Pickens. He's a really interesting player down the field.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't put him in my top 10 because of the landing spot, because of the draft capital. First, the draft capital slip was kind of tough to see. I think a lot of that tied to his character concerns and things like that. So that already makes me a little bit hesitant just off the poor character and people not really believing in that. And then for a guy that has poor character to go to Carolina, that even worries me even more, because there's not like a great locker room there. There's not a great culture or anything. Yeah. And then I think he complements Tet really well, but the quarterback, Bryce Young, doesn't really have a deep ball, in my opinion. So I don't know how he's going to fit with Bryce. Maybe Bryce isn't there for long, but I love the talent. I just don't like the fit at all.
Yeah, I think that was kind of what it was for me. Was maybe I think that his skill set is something different that Coker and Tetairoa McMillan do well, but maybe it's the quarterback that I'm a little bit more concerned about, being able to hit Brazzell consistently. Now, he's automatically got 4 years attached to him. This could be a make or break year for Bryce Young. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I do overall like the fit within the wide receiver room. I think Coker has a completely different skill set. Tet, same thing. And I think that both Tet and Coker complement each other well as well. So I think that's also where I get my concerns. Like, yeah, Brazzell does bring that field stretch to Carolina's offense now, which is something that they do need. But I don't know if I have the full confidence in the quarterback being able to hit that consistently. Let's get into our next guy, another unique player. This was a guy who was in my top 10 wide receivers as well, but he does not make my top 10 dynasty wide receivers, and that's Chris Bell. Ryan, very high on Chris Bell in Miami. You got him at the number 5 spot. I believe he was your number 10 pre-draft. I forget. He was in you both of our.
Yeah, I think he was like my 8. He might have been like my 8, but yeah, I'm surprised he's not on either one of yours. I just think for this, it's all about the landing spot. Like, he to me is immediately the most talented player in the Miami Dolphins wide receiver room. Not to mention, he probably would have been a first to second round pick if not for the torn ACL. I don't think that ACL is going to be like a career prohibiting injury in any kind of way. ACLs aren't really what they used to be. So as long as he comes back clean and healthy from that, I think he has a real chance to slot in as the wide receiver 1 for this offense. Malik Willis had a great year last year. We'll see if he can build on that. But I just think that, Miami's going to be a team playing from behind a lot. And in Dynasty, it's like you're really trying to chase opportunities. And I just think a potential wide receiver 1 in a team, in an offense that should be kind of not good, but like numbers wise should be decent, because they will be playing from behind so much. Like, I kind of like chasing this opportunity with Chris Bell with the potential to be a wide receiver 1 in this offense as soon as this year.
Yeah, I think what I'm curious about, and honestly the only reason why he wasn't on my top 10 list, because I saw the talent too, and I recognized that he could have had much higher draft capital had it not been for the injury. But he wasn't even the first wide receiver that the Dolphins drafted. So I don't know if that, I like to think that he can be that wide receiver 1, but right now it doesn't feel like they even see him that way. And then you go back to even more so than some of the guys we previously talked about in Dart and Bryce. Like, you have major quarterback concerns down in Miami, and I think it's going to be a slow burn for any guys down there to really stand out. Even if someone becomes a wide receiver 1, it's not going to be a very high value wide receiver 1. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, it's a completely new, front office down to the players that are coming in the draft here. But I'm so hesitant on any Dolphins players right now.
Yeah, I would agree. Outside of Devon A-Chain, I'm worried about touching. And maybe I'd be a little bit different if they invested like a first-round pick into one of the more premier guys. It'd be like, okay, there's an opportunity there. But I'm not a huge Bobby Slowick guy. I'm hesitant on Malik Willis. Yeah, he was running a really great offense in Green Bay for a handful of times, and they didn't give him a massive amount of money where it's like, yeah, he's the clear-cut guy, but at the end of the day, I think there's just too many question marks surrounding Chris Bell, and on top of the fact they didn't even select him first, whether you want to discount that towards his injury and whatnot, that worries me a little bit. And I think maybe he was my number 8. The guys who are just outside my list, I like their landing spots and their situations more. I like Chris Bell and I like what he brought, but overall, I think I think you make good points though. Like, he very well could be clear-cut number 1 over Caleb Douglas, and he runs away with it. Malik Willis is finding him the ball as a 1,000-yard receiver. He's got plenty of opportunity. I just think the question marks weigh me down too much, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, the first wide receiver thing, I get it, but I feel like that's just the Dolphins being the Dolphins. And once Chris Bell gets into that, like once we get into training camp, it's going to be pretty obvious who's the most talented, because I don't think Caleb Douglas was like anywhere close to our top 10s where Chris Bell was. So I think talent will show through.
I get what you're saying. Let's go ahead and get into our next one here. We got Antonio Williams, a guy who makes all 3 of our lists. Ryan, you got him at the 7. He was not in your top 10. He was in neither of our top 10. Now I got him at the 8, and Lucas sneaks him in at the 10 spot. We'll kick it off with you, Ryan. You got him all the way up from, I would assume he was your 11. He was my 11, but still, that's a 4-spot jump there.
Yeah, I think I think he was probably my 12, because I think I had Jeremy Bernard wasn't in my list either, so he probably would have been my 11. But Antonio Williams is one of those types of players that's just going to immediately come in, I think, and give you production, especially in a fantasy perspective, just because he plays that slot. He's going to be the underneath target for Washington. Jaden Daniels obviously back and healthy. I think Washington's going to take a big step forward offensively this year. And then just looking at the competition he has, Terry McLaurin's getting older. I do think they'll bring in Brandon Ayuk, but it's hard to say how good Brandon Ayuk's going to be. So there's a real case for Antonio Williams to be kind of like that most trusted underneath weapon. I think he'll immediately start in the slot. I'm not worried about Luke McCaffrey or anybody else there. So I think just his talent paired with the landing spot and the opportunity he's going to have makes him a pretty obvious, like, I think Josh Downs type of player where he's just going to be a 5-6 catch guy in the slot right away.
Yeah, no, he was kind of like my poor man's Makai Lemon of the class, with the speed manipulation, the awareness on the field. He's just not as money of a route runner as Makai Lemon was, but that's okay. You know, Makai Lemon was 20th overall pick in the draft class. Overall, yeah, I think that he brings some real juice out of the slot in this Washington offense. He's got an opportunity to have a lot of receptions this year. Like you said, I'm expecting a bounce back offensive year for the Commanders overall, and they invested a 3rd-round pick into this player. The highly recruited, coming out of high school. You know, it's just all these Clemson guys have just had up and down careers over the last 2 years. I'm a big believer in Antonio Williams, and I think that he is going to make a lot of noise in this Commanders offense. I think we might have lost Lucas again. Lucas, can you hear us?
Sure can.
Antonio Williams, how you feeling about him?
Yeah, I think Ryan mentioned earlier, and I forget who it was about, but with, you know, just dynasty format, and especially when you're throwing darts at these late round draft picks, you know, it's a gamble, right? Like, there's some of these guys where you hit the right shot, you just really get lucky on a guy, they could all of a sudden turn into like a staple on your team. You think of guys like Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and semi-recent years who super under the radar, 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks, and then end up just having, you know, record-setting seasons. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I don't by any means see that for Antonio Williams necessarily, but I do think that the Commanders are a team that are going to look wildly different than how they looked this past year. And everyone who still might be putting up numbers is getting old and getting worked out of the league, to be honest. I mean, Deebo Samuel is still productive and a talented player, but those snaps are going to be gone. And Zach Ertz, snaps that are no longer on the team anymore. You know, they're targets that exist for someone, and someone's got to come take them. But you know, then you go back to things like the draft capital for Williams. You know, is he really going to be one of those premier guys? The 3rd-round pick makes you think that, you know, they see him that way. So if you're right on him and he ends up being a really good player, then I think there's a great opportunity for him to actually be like a significant asset in dynasty leagues.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. We got to move on, though. Another guy that Ryan once again left off his top 10 list, and that's Jeremy Bernard. He did not move down. He stays at my number 7, and he was Lucas's. I'm sorry, Lucas. He was your 9 wide receiver. And I've come around a little bit. If you watch me and Ryan's winners and losers video, Jeremy Bernard was my loser in terms of landing spots because I talk so highly of his tape, but he needs to be in a system with a quarterback who can throw with anticipation and timing. And as of right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have that. And he to me was just a very high ceiling wide receiver too. Right now, he's in a room full of wide receiver twos in my eyes. So on the other hand, I'm staying true to the talent and true to what my eyes see. I do think Jeremy Bernard is one of the more sound and safe receivers of this entire draft class, despite his talented limitations or elite trait limitations. Overall, he's sound and strong. And I think still invest your draft capital into this player because over time, for years and years to come, this is going to be a very consistent and reliable player once Pittsburgh figures it out and find themselves a quarterback. I think they've got the play caller down. Mike McCarthy knows how to get his weapons to football. It's proven time and time again. Jeremy Bernard is one of those weapons. They invested a second-round pick into this player. Who's going to be throwing him the football? There's question marks there, but I decided to stick true to the talent. Try not to helmet scout too much this one because I do believe he has an extremely safe floor as a strong wide receiver too in this league for a long time.
Yeah, I think you nailed on a lot of what I like in him too. Like, I think one, it's going to take time. I have no idea what that offense is going to look like this year, and it's a crowded wide receiver room. So I don't expect this one to, turn into anything significant this first year. But it's a guy I'd love to have on my practice squad to see, even if it isn't in Pittsburgh a few years from now. I think he'll end up having a nice career in the league. So, yeah, I like it. I like the talent, but the landing spot just feels brutal, to be honest.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't have a nice career now because I double snubbed him. So it's going to look really bad if he does. But no, I definitely thought of him as like a high floor player as well. I looked at him similar to Jacoby Myers, who's just kind of like not great at anything, but sticks around for so long in this league just because he's so reliable, high IQ kind of guy. But I think just like the limited ceiling in general paired with a bad landing spot just kind of keeps him off my top 10. Like, I don't think he's ever going to be a wide receiver 1 type of player. And then he goes to a team that has 2 stars, even if they're not real stars. Like, I think they're probably 2 of the more overrated wide receivers in the league, but still 2 guys that are going to dominate a lot of the target share, I'd imagine, this year. So I don't know what's going to happen with Jeremy Bernard. And then, like you guys said, the quarterback situation's a little bit iffy there. So we'll see.
Yeah, I do think that we talked about this in our winners and losers videos as well. If Aaron Rodgers does come back, I do think that there is a path for Jeremy Bernard to be the number 1 wide receiver on the team this year because of how reliable he is, the anticipation and the timing. Like, this is a guy who is one of the strongest route runners across all 3 levels and is phenomenal after the catch, has extremely sound hands. Like I said, it's just really the elite traits that limit what he can be. But overall, like I think that this guy could be a really consistent football player in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers could have him being, because I think he's more reliable than Michael Pittman, than DK Metcalf. Like, I don't find those guys. I mean, I guess Pittman's reliable, but it's a different skill set between the two. I don't know. That's just how I view it. Let's go ahead and talk. Speaking of Michael Pittman, Denzel Boston, here we go. My number 9, Lucas got him at the 7. Ryan's got him at the 8. He dropped pretty significantly for me after the draft. Lucas, we didn't have your pre-draft ranking, so, and remember, this is Dynasty as well. Ryan, but he dropped as well for you. Lucas, we'll start with you. You got him the highest on the list. What do you like about Denzel Boston's tape, and are you worried about the Concepcion pick just going, ahead of him about half a round?
No, I'm not really worried. I've always seen Boston as I guess I haven't seen Boston as a number 1, clear leader in the wide receiver room type of guy. Like, I think he's going to be someone who needs that maybe number 1 receiver to really stand out. And we see a lot of guys with high touchdown numbers who maybe aren't necessarily the number 1 target on the rest of the drive. But when you get in the red zone, guys like Denzel Boston can really shine and start to put up the points. I think of guys like Devontae Adams and I guess off the top of my head, a lot of the other guys are tight ends, but still those big bodies who in the red zone, they're going to be those reliable targets. And Cleveland needs someone who's, sure-handed, who's going to be able to turn their drives into touchdowns. I think they're certainly on the rise in terms of not only just the team, but specifically their offense. They've added a lot of pieces to the offensive line. Expecting to see a nice jump from Quinshon Judkins, and now they're building out the wide receiver room in the draft. So I'm actually a fan of what they're doing. It's probably the first time in my life I've been able to realistically say that, but I like the team a lot right now. And again, going back to the opportunity, like Concepcion was drafted higher, but they're both going to walk in day one, be rookies, and have every opportunity to fight for those targets. So we'll obviously see Concepcion a little bit later because of that draft capital and because the maybe different style of player, but I still really like Boston and his situation in Cleveland.
Ryan, your take on Boston? You got him at the 8th spot, a few clicks down.
Yeah, he was my number 5 pre-draft. Does slide a little bit. I get what Lucas is saying. I definitely like the pick for Cleveland, but I just think for Boston, there were a couple of landing spots that I was looking at as, maybe he could slide in as a wide receiver 1, like the Las Vegas Raiders. I know they have Brock Bowers, obviously, but like as that number 1 outside receiver, I just think that Cleveland's room's a little bit full for a team that's not projected to be very good, especially from like just a passing yard standpoint and who they have at quarterback, Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders. You still got Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy out there. I don't think that's going to be a long-term hindrance at all, but it could impact in the short term. And then going forward, there's always going to be KC Concepcion ahead of him, in my opinion, at least, just because of how I view Concepcion as a player. Some might think Boston's better. I don't know. But Boston, to me, is always going to be kind of like capped as a wide receiver 2 now in this offense, which is fine because that could still be productive, but still not as high as a ceiling as I was initially thinking. My pre-draft comparison was Nico Collins, and I said I had a medium confidence of him getting there. So I don't even think that's even like in the realm of possibilities now, just because of the offense he's going to. And then also, like I said, Concepcion, higher draft capital.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, for me, it's I think he's probably very likely looking at option number 3 with Fannin there as well. And how reliable Harold Fannin was for Shedeur Sanders. Whether if it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, long-term or not, that's obviously something that goes in Boston's favor. And I still like the talent. Like I said, still have him in my top 10. I think that Lucas brought up a lot of his good points where it's like, yeah, this guy could dominate in the red zone. He could complement Concepcion very well. But I still have question marks about the quarterback room. One, how Todd Monken's I like Todd Monken and what he was able to do in Baltimore. How is that going to translate to this Cleveland offense? I'm not sure. I like what we're building. There's still question marks at the quarterback spot, and I do think he's option number 3. Not that there can't be, touches there for him still as the 3rd option, but we're also talking about Jeudy and Tillman, who I do like. I think Tillman's probably found his way, found his way on the back burner now. We just haven't seen it consistently from him over the course of his career. Too many injuries, etc. But he's still got Jeudy there to battle with. So I do think he's going to be son of a bitch option number 3, but a little bit of cause for concern there as well with the question marks surrounding the Cleveland offense. Let's go ahead and move on here now. We've got Dezhaun Stribbling. Dezhaun Stribbling pre-draft was my number 12. He sneaks into my 10 spot, all the way up at the 6th spot for Lucas and off the board for Ryan. We're going to let both of you guys kick this one off. We're going to kick it off with Lucas, and I want to go to Ryan and why he's got him off the list even. Lucas, you start, though. You got him high. Let's talk about your guy.
That's crazy. The draft capital, man. Pick 33 on an offense who has Mike Evans, Christian McCaffrey, and maybe towards the end of the season, George Kittle. So, I'm not going to deny the fact that it's a crowded room right now, but they've, swung and missed a couple times now to try and have a true wide receiver 1. Mike Evans is certainly temporary. Even guys like McCaffrey and Kittle are on the late stages of their career. And so, we'll see if Stribbling turns into something in the long term. But right now, what does that wide receiver one position look like after Mike Evans, and with the draft capital, with where their team had some obvious holes on the other side of the ball, but they still went Stribbling there. You got to imagine that they have some strong plans for him, and they'll make sure that he gets the ball. So, yeah, I think pick 33. I couldn't leave that off my list. That's crazy. That's crazy that he's number 10 for you, Will, and off of yours, Ryan. But yeah, I don't know if you want to believe some of what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are saying in terms of everyone else thought he was this good too, and maybe that adds to it. But yeah, pick 33. Come on.
I can't believe that Chris Bell's not on your guys' list and Dezhaun Stribbling is. So I'm on the other side of things here.
That's fair.
I don't know. I don't really see him as like a dynasty or a fantasy football type of player. Like, I think he's going to be a way better real life NFL player than he is for fantasy. Like, if you really read into what they think of him and why they picked him so high and what he's going to do in the NFL, it seemed like a lot of it is going to be like field stretching. They really complimented his run blocking as a wide receiver. That's something that really stuck out to me. They were like, yeah, he's clearly the best run blocking receiver in the class. So I think that's just one of those guys that, like, Kyle Shanahan is one of these genius offensive guys who just like wants people to fit his system. And I think when you've got guys like that, they're really just drafting players for system fits, and it tends to be overdrafting and reaching. I would argue that you saw that with Ben Johnson this year with the Bears. I think Sean Payton does it every year. So I think just like these genius type of coaches, they just want guys that fit their system. And I don't really look at it like that's an indication of their talent or anything. I think it more so speaks to just, the type of player and what they want from that position. I look at him more as like a wide receiver 2 type that's going to just be a solid player in the league, but not really much of a contributor to fantasy.
Yeah, I think you guys both make really good points there. For me, why I snuck him in was the draft capital of 33 is huge. And I did like Stribbling's tape. Brock Purdy's an accurate quarterback. This is a guy who is physical at his breaks, had really strong. He's big, strong, fast guy. Like the blend of size and speed was super enticing on tape as well. Like I said, he's physical at the breaks. He can get open using his physicality and using his size. And Brock Purdy's an accurate quarterback. If he can find him the ball, I think there's a lot of upside in his game. But I also do think that he's going to have a multitude of roles that maybe could limit his overall production. A lot of mouths to feed in that offense as well. I think you guys nailed it both on the head. That's why I snuck him right into the sweet spot at 10. And I always do get a little nervous when they talk about like the plans they have for players. Like, I'll never forget John Lynch going on Chris Collinsworth's show and just sitting there and gagging Trey Lance. He said Kyle Shanahan couldn't stop smiling. He had his iPad out. He couldn't stop drawing up plays for Trey Lance as they left Justin Fields' pro day. Like, I will never forget that comment. And that guy played like 4 games in his NFL career. Still going, by the way. But, yeah, I always get a little bit nervous. Maybe lean more on the Grant Cohn side of like, why do you guys consistently draft over the consensus? But he snuck into my top 10. I think you guys both make really good points. That's why I keep you guys around. Who we got next? We got Omar Cooper Jr. Ryan, very low at this. God, the one thing I'm going to get to know about Ryan and the viewers are going to get to know about Ryan is I think we're at the point, and he might not necessarily be wrong for this. If a guy is drafted by the Jets, knock him down about half of what he's worth. Like, guaranteed.
Exactly.
He was the number 6 wide receiver for Ryan. Now he's at the 10 spot. Lucas, you've got him at the 4 spot, though. You're the lead man here. Talk about what you love about the pairing of Omar Cooper Jr. and the New York Jets.
Well, I don't know that that's what I want to start with. I think this is definitely one of those where I really like the player. Like, I think he showed that he is an NFL starting wide receiver and what he put on tape last year. I don't think he's necessarily the best complement to Garrett Wilson. Like, I think they have some similarities there. I think Garrett Wilson's still obviously the alpha, but they're both really talented wide receivers. And so I think just generally going to help the offense. Obviously, quarterback and just overall offensive talent is still a huge question mark for the Jets. And that's just kind of scratching the surface of those organizational concerns. But I really like the player coming in towards the back of the first round. Was obviously happy to see that draft capital. So this is more me liking the player and not really admitting that I don't really like a lot of what's going on in his situation. But outside of Garrett Wilson, there's a lot of targets to be had, and I think most guys benefit, and the team obviously benefits as a whole when you have a strong wide receiver too to complement a stud like Wilson.
Yeah, so I basically hate everything about this because he was already, I would say, my most overrated player, and I think Will, you said he was my wide receiver 6, which you made it sound like that was a good thing. That was actually probably way lower than what most people thought of him. Like, he was I saw him as like more of a wide receiver 3 in terms of where he was going to be drafted leading up to the draft. I just didn't like the player. I thought he gave me a lot of vibes of like a Deebo Samuel or a DJ Moore, where it's like not somebody that can consistently win on the outside, doesn't separate all that well, can't run a ton of routes, and is probably going to be primarily useful in the slot and getting him a lot of manufactured touches. And then with the Jets, it's like, I think Kenyon Sadiq is going to be a majority of the slot type of player, because I don't think of him as like this great inline tight end. They got Mason Taylor, they got Jeremy Ruckert. So it's like, if Kenyon Sadiq's going to be taking up most of that slot, then Omar Cooper's going to be an outside receiver. I don't think he's best fit there. I don't like the Jets' offensive system. I don't like their quarterback. I think they're going to be the worst team in football this year. And then you've also just got a ton of weapons where it's like, where does Omar Cooper even slide in here? I mean, I think Garrett Wilson's going to get more targets. I think Kenyon Sadiq's getting more targets. Breece Hall probably more targets. I thought Mason Taylor was a good tight end. So it's like, I just don't like how crowded the room is. And then I obviously don't like anything about the Jets offense.
Yeah, I once again, you guys both make really, really good points. And I think it was a lot for me was trying not to helmet scout as well, trying to stay true to my player. I feel like the players eventually they overcome. And I am a fan of Omar Cooper Jr. a little bit more than you were, Ryan. I had him ahead of Boston in my pre-draft rankings as well, right behind Concepcion. Not right behind Concepcion. There was a pretty decent gap between the two players, but I think there's going to be a player who gets the ball in his hands a lot over the course of his career. Is it going to take a little bit? Is he maybe going to have one of those Deebo Samuel peaks? Yeah, but I do think it's going to be a damn good peak. Like, I do think we're going to have like a 3 or 4 year run at some point in Omar Cooper Jr.'s career where it's like this guy is just going to be getting fed the ball. Very, very strong contact balance, yards after the catch, everything. Omar Cooper Jr.'s got that. Will some of them be manufactured? Of course they will. He's not the best separator. He's not the best deep threat, but I do think he's closer to DJ Moore as a wide receiver than he is as Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel was like truly a manufactured player. A lot more touches in the backfield, etc. there. I do think that that Omar Cooper Jr. can win outside even just as well as DJ Moore does, comparative to just being strictly a slot guy like most people view him as. So I do think that there's a lot more upside in his game, and he's going to get the ball a lot over the course of his career. There we have it. Oh, with the Jets. Come on, you got to think about who's going to be running the Jets next year with the number 1 overall pick, fancy new quarterback. What offensive mind are they going to be bringing in? That's what you got to be thinking about when you're thinking about Omar Cooper Jr. Don't think about him now. Don't think about 2026 Omar Cooper Jr. Think about 2027 Omar Cooper Jr. That's where the juice comes in.
I feel like I've heard that about Garrett Wilson for the last like 3 years now. Yep.
That's so true. So true. Here we go. Skyler Bell, both at the 6th spot on me and Ryan's list. And this is just a guy who we can't get enough of. Lucas, he sneaks off your list, but that's okay. You know, he's a little bit of a sneaky guy. This is somebody that we found early on in the process. But he was actually one of my winners when we were talking about winners and losers. I love the Buffalo landing spot for him. You've got the bonanza comp of Jamar Chase, Ryan, and I think that nails it on the head in terms of what he fits in their offense. You have Khalil Shakur. He's just more of that first level option, more of a gadget player. And then you got your slot, multi-tool DJ Moore there. This is a guy who is going to be working the ins and outs, more of a true route technician, a guy you can line up outside, speed, not the thickest player, but overly solid size. You know, he's not the, super skinny, but a little bit on the scrawnier side overall. I just think he complements the Buffalo offense so well. I think that this is going to be one of those sneaky guys. You know, he's a 4th-round selection. I think that this is going to be one of the Puka, not necessarily to the level of 1,800 yards, whatever, as a rookie, but this is going to be one of the Puka Nakuas of the class where I think we're looking at 1,000 yards in year 1. Was it the crowded room that was kind of scaring you, Lucas?
That's crazy to me, man. 1,000 yards his rookie year. I don't see that at all. I think Josh Allen and the offense that they kind of have to run there. I think DJ Moore, like, great spot for him. I love him as a player, and I think Shakir is the real complement to what DJ Moore can bring. I think you got to have someone who's physical, who can get open later in the play. Like, you don't necessarily need someone who's going to be, Khalil Shakir already fits the kind of mold of what they need in the short yardage scenarios, and really being like a true slot route runner, gets open enough, but is really great after the catch. Skyler Bell, like, I think his game is different than DJ Moore's and different than Shakir's, but I don't think that that's a good thing for what the Buffalo offense needs. So I don't know. I like DJ Moore in that offense. I don't think that it's an offense that's ever going to support like 2 main fantasy skill position players, or I guess James Cook and wide receiver 1 I can see, but I guess 3 I don't see happening. So I think it's just, you have the clear dog in DJ Moore, and maybe it's not clear, but I think it will end up being the case. I don't really see how Skyler Bell fits in to be like a truly productive guy in that offense.
Yeah, I think Will got a little bit ahead of himself there. Like, I definitely saw some similarities to Ja'Marr Chase, but I wasn't
fired up.
Yeah, I definitely.
I said Bonanza comp.
Yeah, that's like the absolute upside comparison. But yeah, I do kind of agree with you, Will, in the sense that I do think there's a chance for him to emerge in this wide receiver room. I'm not really a huge DJ Moore guy in terms of wide receiver talent and, the effort that he plays with at times. I think he's taken a step back and he's only getting older as well. I think Skyler Bell kind of slots in immediately as an outside starting receiver, in my opinion. I don't think Keon Coleman has done anything to, secure that job. Last year you saw what Brandon Cooks was like their number 1 in playoff time, right? So it's like, this is a team that's been starving for wide receivers, especially on the outside. I think Skyler Bell gives you a lot as an outside receiver. His releases are really great, great route runner, like you said. So, I mean, if he can earn a starting job out of camp, he's going to be a productive player in this Buffalo Bills offense. And it's one of the better landing spots in terms of team, in terms of fit. Joe Brady's obviously great with receivers. Maybe that's where the Ja'Marr Chase comp comes in. I don't know. Like, he did coach Ja'Marr in college. So we'll see. But I do like this fit in Buffalo. Josh Allen, young receiver. He's going to be paired up with him for the next, 3-4 years. So I like that a lot.
And Lucas, I do think that you absolutely nailed it when you talk about how Buffalo's offense has been run the last few years. Maybe Skyler Bell doesn't fit in there, but I think Skyler Bell gives them the opportunity to expand on that. I feel like the weapons around them has kind of limited them to these more gadget guys have been working for them, and just letting Josh Allen take over, relying on the run game a little bit more. I think that this Bell could be one of those guys that could expand their offense. That's kind of how I see it. Of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. I love getting ahead of myself. So I love the hot takes. But I think overall, nobody's wrong in this situation.
We'll see how it plays out.
We'll see how it plays out. Exactly. Here we go. KC Concepcion. Lucas, you got him at the 5. You like him more than, or you like him less than Omar Cooper Jr.? He stays at my 4 and stays at the 4 for Ryan as well. He was number 4 in both of our pre-draft rankings. But give me the juice here, Ryan. You like the landing spot for Concepcion there, or what? Because you actually had this guy at your 3. You had him ahead of Tyson pre-draft. So what caused the slip? Is it the Browns?
It's definitely the Browns. I remember pre-draft I was saying, like, man, whatever receiver goes to the Jets or the Browns, I'm gonna end up like hating and dropping. Like, those were the 2 spots I was trying for my top receivers to avoid. But unfortunately, he does go to the Browns. I did kind of rethink it a little bit and be like, I kind of came to like a realization that the Browns might not be as bad as I was making it out to be, just because all they really do need is a quarterback. I like their coaching staff. I like Todd Monken a lot. I like the young weapons that they have there with Judkins, Fannin, Concepcion in Boston. Like, I think this does have the makings of being a good offense going forward if they can get that quarterback position right. But that is a big if. So just like right now, I mean, you're thinking of Deshaun Watson, you're thinking of Shador. There's a lot of there's a lot of players in that mix, like I said when I was talking about Boston. But I think Concepcion's talent will take over. He'll emerge as the number one receiver in this offense. I'm not sure he'll ever supplant Harold Fannin just because of how much Monken loves his tight ends. So I don't think there's true like number one target upside necessarily, but I still think he's going to be a really good player for a long time as long as he cleans up those drops, but not as much upside as there would have been if he went to like a San Francisco, like I was dreaming on.
Yeah, I think the decision between Omar Cooper Jr. and Casey Concepcion for me was far and away like the tightest race here, the closest to. I think what it boiled down to for me is they're in very similar landing spots, quarterback questions, wide receiver competition to different extents. But when you toss in Fan in there for Cleveland, I think, you have an established presence in terms of pass catchers that's already there that they're both stepping into. And I think with Concepcion's game, and I really hope I'm wrong because I feel like he could be the guy who emerges here as like truly one of the best. I think he can do everything. He can fill any role you need him to, and I feel like he's good at everything that he does. So I do really like the player. I also liked Omar Cooper Jr. a lot as well. But I think that when I look at the types of players, I see a little bit more consistency in Omar Cooper Jr.'s game. And I think if I'm wrong on that Concepcion could be like the number one or number two guy in this class. Like if he is able to sustain high level, 7-8 targets a game, he could put up some crazy numbers because I do really like the player, but this is a very close call for me.
No, I think that we gotta touch on just the inconsistencies in Concepcion's game that was kind of holding him back from being my in my top three. He was right on that board. I mean, we look at my big board, it was Jordyn, Tyson, and next player directly right after him was Concepcion, because I do think that there's some inconsistencies that I saw in Tyson's game as well. I just liked his upside a little bit more, but I mean, both of those players, and we're going to touch on Tyson here in a little bit, could end up being right there with how I view the other two players that I had ahead of them. Not to make any spoilers, but I'm sure you can pick up what I'm putting down. But if he can just focus on better hands, because he drops the ball a shit ton, and being a lot more cleaner with his routes, he has the upside to be a star. I think that he has really no ceiling here, but the Browns, like just the question marks once again, like we talked about with Fannin as well. Why did big wide receiver room just only 15-20 picks later you seen them take Denzel Boston as well, which obviously different skill sets, but overall I think there's just still question marks in the landing spot and in his game overall, where I just kept him at the 4 spot because I love the player, but still inconsistencies in his tape and whatnot. So overall I think the sky's the limit for a player like Concepcion.
I saw Steve Smith say this is the perfect spot for him to go to clean up his drops because there ain't shit else to do in Cleveland. And I kind of agree with that take.
That's classic. He said there ain't shit else to do in Cleveland. I love that. That's perfect. All right, let's get into our next guy. That's Makai Lemon. I got him at the 2. He drops to the 3 for Ryan. Lucas, we did not have your pre-draft rankings, but I think this probably would have been around where Lemon was from conversations that me and you have had. I guess I'll kick it off since he's at my 2. The gap between Lemon and Tyson pre-draft for me was not significant, but 15 spots. I was much higher. I said that this, in my opinion, is the safest player in this wide receiver class. I don't really worry about the landing spot too much. I know some people have their concerns, but this is a guy who gets open and gets open fast. I don't know if Jalen Hurts can't hit him, then who can? I think that Hurts has proved himself as a solid quarterback in the NFL. Maybe he doesn't do it overly, especially well over the middle of the field where somebody from the slot might be more benefiting from. But Makai Lemon, man, he's like one of the best route runners, one of the most high IQ aware football players. And he's extremely talented with the ball in his hands after the catch. I'm sticking true to my pre-draft rankings and the talent and the safe floor. I think that for me, how I viewed it was, I think that he's going to be better than Devonta Smith. I have more confidence in him being better than Devonta Smith and being the number one option there once AJ Brown is gone, than I have in Jordyn Tyson taking over Chris Olave. And I think that this is going to be Makai Lemon's team very soon. But Ryan, let's talk. We can go to Lucas too. I don't really matter to me, but I want to see why Ryan dropped him down below Tyson. It was interesting to me because of the conversations me and you had. You made it seem like there was a pretty significant gap between the two, but
yeah, I mean, this was pure landing spot to me on both sides. Like I really love Tyson's landing spot, which we'll get into, and then Makai Lemon. I just think of like when I comped Makai Lemon to Amon-Ra St. Brown, I thought, like when you think about St. Brown, what works so well for him is he's paired up with like the perfect quarterback in terms of timing, anticipation, just getting the ball out of his hands quick. I think of Jalen Hurts as a guy who holds the ball, who doesn't throw it over the middle, who doesn't throw with any kind of timing or anticipation. And I think that's not going to really utilize Makai Lemon to his full strengths. With that being said, I think Makai Lemon's actually going to be, he's going to thrive in a different role. Like I think Makai Lemon might be more of a boundary receiver now, where you line him up outside and he goes and wins the ball down the field, because he can do that too. I thought he had the best hands in the class. I thought he did show some really good contested catching ability down the field. So I actually think he's going to be more in that role, which is probably worse for fantasy than someone who just plays out of the slot. Remember, they took Eli Stowers too, and I think Eli Stowers could be a legit slot player in year one as well, possibly if they want to do that. So I think Makai Lemon might take over like AJ Brown's role in a way, in terms of just being an outside receiver, which I don't think fully utilizes his skill set to the best of his ability. So I'm kind of concerned, like if he would have went to a different team where he could just cook in the slot and be paired up with like a Matthew Stafford, that's by far to me like the number 2 in this class. But with this landing spot and Jalen Hurts, I was a little bit lower on him than Tyson and some other people were.
Yeah, I mean, I won't re-explain all the positives and all the good things I like about Makai Lemon. You guys hit on all the important pieces there. He's a dog. I think the landing spot's average. Like, it could have been much worse, if we weren't kind of gearing up for an AJ Brown trade that's going to be coming shortly here. And, if it wasn't just like a good offense, generally speaking, then I think, like I said, it could have been much worse. But I think looking at the guys that I have ahead of him, they benefited from their draft capital and landing spot significantly more than Makai Lemon did. I did have a gap between Lemon and my number 2 pre-draft. Still, to me, there was a clear top 3. I think right now there again is a clear top 3. But he just didn't take as much of a step forward after the draft as the other 2 guys did.
Totally fair. Let's go ahead and reveal the mystery, man. That'd be Jordyn Tyson. He stays at my 3. I like the landing spot. You guys both bumped him up. Well, you didn't bump him up, Lucas, but you got him at the 2, Ryan. And Ryan, we'll kick it off with you. What stands out to you so much about this New Orleans landing spot that you'd like to give him the boost over Makai Lemon?
Yeah, I love this spot. First of all, top 10 draft capital, which is great. But then also going to New Orleans Saints, I think he complements Chris Olave perfectly. Like Chris Olave is the guy that's going to stretch the field and really win downfield. I think Tyson complements him in the sense that he's going to be working underneath. He's going to be working over the middle, intermediate. I just think this is a really dynamic pairing for the New Orleans Saints. And I like the fact that this is really the only 2 guys like that are fantasy relevant too. Like it's a pretty uncrowded wide receiver room, kind of opposing the Cleveland Browns or the Jets or any of these other landing spots. It's really just him and Olave. I think Tyson's injury concerns and some of the inconsistencies we talked about in the pre-draft rankings are still there. But I just think the New Orleans Saints, like it's an offensive friendly environment. They play indoors, warm weather. Kellen Moore is great. Tyler Shuck looks like he could be a franchise quarterback. So I just think they have a lot of good things going for them. And Jordyn Tyson's going to slot in here as like an immediate target share kind of monster in this offense. And that to me is just a little bit more appealing than Makai Lemon in a bit of a crowded room with a quarterback that's not really known for passing and, just some of those kind of concerns there.
I honestly think that Jordyn Tyson's going to be the wide receiver 1 his rookie year down in New Orleans. I think Olave was a guy who, to me, has always felt like kind of the ceiling of a wide receiver 2, like a really, really solid wide receiver 2, who's more been forced to fill the role of a wide receiver 1 the last few years. I think, too, like if we're talking injury concerns and this isn't necessarily a comparison of Jordyn Tyson to Chris Olave that we're doing here as much as it is Jordyn Tyson to the other wide receivers in the class. But you look at those two guys in particular. I mean, Olave's a fucking bump in the head away from retiring. So I don't know. I have serious concerns around the longevity of his career, and someone who had a decent amount of Chris Olave stock earlier on in his career didn't see the absolute production that I was hoping for compared to London and Wilson. And I really like Jordyn Tyson as a player. I think I was probably a bit higher on him than both of you guys were pre-draft. And like Ryan said, the top 10 capital is just awesome to see. So I absolutely love this. And if we didn't see a wide receiver go number 4 overall, this could have very easily been a jump in the rankings for me, because I'm a huge fan of what this could look like for him as a true wide receiver one, a dynasty wide receiver one, not just a wide receiver one for his team.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'll say this. Tyson definitely closed the gap in my eyes. I think that him obviously getting the top 10 capital, I like what New Orleans is building. It's not like I hate the landing spot at all either. And Chris Olave can easily be overcome as a wide receiver one. Like, it's not like this is like a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase-esque player. I'm a big fan of Chris Olave, but overall, he could easily be overcome. And I think this is a good spot for him to go and maybe focus on the things that I think he needs to fix as well. He doesn't have the pressure to go in there and compete immediately and be like the guy and the focal point of the New Orleans Saints offense, because they do have Chris Olave there. And I do think that they mesh well together. So I love the landing spot. I love the capital. I definitely think that he closed the gap a little bit. I think when it comes to wide receivers, I've made a lot of mistakes when it comes to my dynasty rankings, trying to maybe overthink it and not stay true to my rankings. One that comes to mind is Sky Moore and Chris Olave. Like, I took Sky Moore over Chris Olave because it was the height of the Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs era, where it was like, wow, like Tyreek Hill, I'm pretty sure was gone, and they got rid of him and they drafted Sky Moore, and it was like this whole thing, like, here we go, like this is the replacement. So for me, it's just staying true to my rankings. But I will say Jordyn Tyson did close that gap pretty good, and I think that he separated himself even from Concepcion and moved closer into where I have the 2 and 3. Let's talk about the number 1, though. That is clear and obvious, Carnell Tate, the number 4 overall pick of the NFL draft, going to the Tennessee Titans, where all he has to worry about is Chimere Dike, Alec Ayomanor, and Wan'Dale Robinson. And Brian Dable slaps his name on this player. Clear and obvious number 1 wide receiver. I'll let you guys take the floor here on this.
Yeah, I think number 4 overall is just insane. Like, that tells you that they obviously see him highly, and it's a room where he's clear number 1 wide receiver for that Tennessee offense. Being paired with Cam Ward, that's a stack that I would love to have. I don't have or envision myself getting after the rookie draft season on any of my teams, but I think Cam Ward is a guy who's got the talent and has not had a team around him his rookie year. Like, they were terrible. But a former number 1 overall pick, obviously now being paired with number 4 overall wide receiver, like, this could potentially just be a combo that, kind of takes over the league in the next year or two. So there's a lot that has to go right for that to happen, but the potential's there, the talent's there, super polished player coming out of college and, a clear professional. So there's just so much opportunity for this to be a jackpot, and the draft capital, the resources that they're dumping into the team as a whole, and the new pretty creditable coaching staff. I think all reasons to be excited about this.
Yeah, I've talked about him a lot already. He was my number 1 winner as well. I just am so high on the player. Like, I think of him as an incredible wide receiver talent, and then the landing spot is just as good. Like Lucas said, I'm also really high on Cam Ward, and then I think this offense has just got nowhere to go but up. I mean, it was a disaster last year just in terms of play calling, scheme. Obviously, the coach changes, so having that stability with Brian Dable for a year, I think is really going to help Cam Ward, and then giving him a number 1. I think the thing I like the most about this is that Carnell Tate's going to have a chance to be a number 1 receiver. Like, he's not going to just be, oh, you were a wide receiver 2 in college, so we're just going to put you into that role in the NFL as well. I think he's got a legit chance here to showcase his talent as a wide receiver one, a guy that dominates the targets in his offense, as opposed to if he went to like the New York Giants, like some were saying, or even the Commanders with Terry McLaurin there. I think this is the clearest landing spot for him to go to showcase if he is a superstar or not.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is everything you want. You know, they get a brand new offensive coordinator with a pretty good proven track record. Not phenomenal as a head coach, but good offensive track record to pair with a up-and-coming quarterback who people are still high on, including myself. I think that this is everything that you dream of. It's very I wouldn't say it's exactly similar because Burrow was definitely much more highly touted, but it's very similar to Jamar Chase going to the Bengals. And I'm not saying that it's even the prospect level of Jamar Chase, but it has that feel to it. Like this guy's going to come in right away and produce. And I think that this is a guy that we could be talking about as a top 15 wide receiver in 1 year, in just a year's time. Genuinely similar to how we did with Malik Neighbors. Like, I think that this could be that kind of player for sure. And there you have it. That is our top 10 wide receivers. We got quarterbacks and tight ends still to come. Those will be coming out in the coming days. Looking forward to it. We're only doing 5 each because kind of weaker classes, but we're going to find a way to talk about 5 quarterbacks, and we're going to find a way to talk about 5 tight ends. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another video. Thanks to Lucas and Ryan Cash Sharma for hopping on. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.